Hello, Saints. Thank you once again for tuning in. Today's message is titled, There Are Sodomites in the Land. And the reason that I'm doing this message is I'm going to demonstrate from the Old Testament scripture that when you see Sodomites in the land, evil has already taken a foothold. Evil has already taken root in that land, country, city, or town. And when you see Sodomites not being afraid of God and flaunting their filth in front of the whole world, this also means that evil has reached the point and it is almost at its tipping point. The message, there are Sodomites in the land, beginning in 1 Kings 14 verse 21. And Rehoboam the son of Solomon reigned in Judah. Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which the Lord did choose out of all the tribes of Israel to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Amorite. And Judah did evil in the sight of the Lord, and they provoked him to jealousy with their sins which they had committed above all that their fathers had done. For they also built them high places and images and groves on every hill and under every green tree. And there were also Sodomites in the land, and they did according to all the abominations of the nations which the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. When we see Sodomites in the land and Sodomites being in positions that they are able to encourage others to be Sodomites with them, we know that evil has taken a foothold in the land. Rehoboam reigned 17 years from 931 to 913 BC. He and all his succeeding kings of Judah reigned in Jerusalem, perhaps to contrast this city with the capitals of the northern kingdom, Shechem, Tirzah, and Samaria. The writer described it as the city the Lord had chosen, not like the northern capitals that were chosen by men. The king's mother, Naamah, was one of Solomon's foreign wives as an Amorite. She worshipped the detestable idol god Molech, which is out of 1 Kings 11:5. We can look at that, and that says, For Solomon went after Ashtoreth, the goddess of the Zidonians, and after Milcom, the abomination of the Amorites. And with that, we can see that this is one of the reasons why Solomon had strayed from the Lord and began to believe all kinds of things that had nothing to do with God. 1 Kings 11:33, because that they have forsaken me and have worshipped Ashtaroth, the goddess of the Sidonians, Chemosh, the god of the Moabites, and Milcom, the god of the children of Ammon, and have not walked in my ways to do that which is right in mine eyes, and to keep my statutes and my judgments, as did David his father. And this was the downfall of Solomon, is that he married all these different wives. They believed all different types of things and worshipped all kinds of demon gods. And because he was with those women, he lost his sure footing with the Lord, because he followed after and believed after those things that were detestable. Talking about Naamah, probably she was partially responsible for the revival of Canaanite paganism that took place during Rehoboam's reign. Yes, Rehoboam's mother was the one who encouraged these people in Judah to worship and to serve these demon gods, because that is what she was raised and that is what she was taught, and this is how she behaved and this is what she believed. Rehoboam turned from the Lord after he had become established on the throne and was strong. This revival of idolatry reintroduced conditions that had prevailed in the days of the judges before David turned the nation to the Lord. The Lord's jealousy or jealous anger was directed at those responsible for the sins that destroyed his beloved people. The high places were sometimes places where Yahweh was worshipped, but not as he had commanded. The sacred stones or pillars and Ashtoreth poles were aids to the worship of male and female Canaanite idols. The high hills and spreading trees were favorite locations for these cultic shrines, which they used male shrine prostitutes, which are Sodomites, were used in pagan worship. The same practices that moved God to purge the land of the moral cancer that plagued it in Joshua's day were those to which the Israelites returned under Rehoboam's leadership. So you see, the leader of a country is the one that can destroy it. The leader of a country is the one that can lead it in the correct direction, or the leader of a country is the one that can drive it into more degradation, more debaucherousness, and more evilness. This is what Obama and his administration has done for this country, is to drive us down lower and deeper into sin and wickedness. Today, evil is not hiding, but is making itself known, just as there is an increase in perversions. Evil will continue to increase, seeing that men are involved in every evil imagination, and Jesus is not in their thoughts. In fact, they hate him more because their perversions have increased exponentially. That's just like the filthy Sodomites today that have these pride parades and are speaking out. They are doing these things because they have a sure hatred in their heart for God, because before him they stand already guilty. Deuteronomy 22:5. The woman shall not wear that which pertaineth unto a man, neither shall a man put on a woman's garment, for all that do so are abomination unto the Lord thy God. This simple passage out of Deuteronomy 22:5 demonstrates that men are not to behave as women, and not to behave as women by wearing their clothes or imitating them or coveting trying to be a woman. This is what Bruce Jenner is doing. He has lived a life in the lap of luxury. He has lived a life that people dream of having, and he is so covetous that all his riches and fame and fortune was not enough for him, that he had to covet, wanting to try to be a woman. That's right. He is trying to be a woman because he will always be Bruce Jenner, not a woman, but a man. This also tells us that these things going on with Target, it's not so much that people can be accosted and taken advantage of, but the real reason why I stand up against this, and all of those who believe and follow after the truth stand up against this, is because it is wrong. Not because someone will be taken advantage of. That will happen too, but for the very first reason that we stand up and speak out about this and against this is because it is wrong. Righteousness, Proverbs 14:34. Righteousness exalts a nation, but sin is a reproach to any people. If we were righteous people, people would look at us around the world and say that those people are living exemplary. They're living in such a way that is acceptable before God. But we cannot say that. Sin has brought us to our knees. Sin is destroying us. And this is demonstrated with the fact that Sodomites are no longer hiding, but they have made themselves known, and they are flaunting their filth in front of the whole nation. I'm going to read you an excerpt from the letter that I received from American Family Association. This is the letter. Beginning, last Friday, the Obama administration sent a directive to thousands of school districts across the country demanding that they allow transgender students access to restrooms and locker rooms corresponding to their imagined gender identity. You get that? Their imagined gender identity, or their imagined perversion of their gender identity. That is what they are doing. The letter cited Title IX, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, but nowhere in the Title IX is the term transgender mentioned. This letter also threatened lawsuits and loss of federal funds if school districts obey the directive. In essence, the Obama administration is saying either schools fall in line with its radical agenda or face punishment from government-sanctioned schoolyard bullies. According to President Obama, schools must allow public school students access to the restroom or locker room of the opposite sex. This is a dangerous policy and a liability nightmare. Ultimately, God's created and natural order is under assault. That is what's happening. They are trying to destroy the natural order of men and women. They are trying to destroy the distinction between boys and girls and men and women. They want to say that everyone that lives on this planet is equal and no one is different than the other. This is also the precursor for the New World Order, when this man of sin will rise to power, and he will have the ability to control every human on the face of the earth. And one of the things that they want to do is destroy the natural order of what God has set in place by destroying gender, man and woman, and also the institution of true marriage. The article goes on, as a dad and grandfather, I don't want a teenage boy in the same restroom with my daughter or granddaughter. Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson fired back at the Obama administration, and I quote Asa Hutchinson. As governor, I recommend that local school districts disregard the latest attempt at social engineering by the federal government and continue to use common sense to ensure a safe and healthy environment in Arkansas schools. It's common sense. Men use the men's restroom and women use the women's restroom. We've been doing it since the creation of this country. And now people are looking at something that we've been doing for hundreds of years, and they are trying to say it is wrong. They are the ones that are wrong. They are the ones that are incorrect. They are the ones that are filthy. They are the ones that are evil. They are the ones that are pushing and believing and trusting in sin. They are the ones that want to destroy all things that are good and are right, and anything that is concerning God, our Creator, what He has created and put in place, they want to destroy it. While the letter implies federal money could be withheld, the letter is nothing more than guidance and is not legally binding. That letter that Obama wrote is not legally binding, and he is trying to bully people into being perverts or to allow perverts access to their restroom facilities. Governors across this country must fight back against this radical agenda that puts the safety of students at risk. And this is the end of the letter, and it's also the end of the quote. Ephesians 5:10, proving what is acceptable unto the Lord, and have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather reprove them. As believers and followers of Jesus Christ, by the example that was set for us by Paul the Apostle, we are to point to those things that are wrong and say they are wrong. We are to look at those things that are evil and say that they are evil. If it is wickedness, we are to call it that. And we are to live in such a way that when people see us and they are wicked and evil and filled with sin, they automatically know that they are wrong. We are to be salt and light in this world, because that is something that is very lacking. There are many who profess to be Christians, but they are liars, hypocrites, fakes and frauds, and they only profess with their mouth, and their heart is far away from the Lord, because they do not realize that we have scripture that tells us to look at those things that are evil, crooked, incorrect, and wrong, and say that that is what it is. We are to reprove those things. We are to point to those things and say it is wrong, in order that those who are being told this is wrong and what they're doing is evil, that they might know the right way, which is only found in Jesus and in the scripture. Matthew 24:14, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. That's just like Obama passed the law for two Sodomites to be able to have anal sex legally. And when they're having anal sex, they are calling this love. But the scripture points directly to that. It already tells us that. And because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. People don't know what love is. People are in love with animals and pets. Men are in love with men, and women are in love with women. And they are calling this love. But it is a perversion. And God has given them over to those vile affections and those vile imaginations, because they don't want to have anything to do with God, which we are told this in Romans chapter 1. Colossians 3:5, mortify therefore your members upon the earth, fornication, uncleanness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry. You get that? Colossians 3:5 tells us to mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth. That means to kill those things that would cause you to fornicate, those things that would cause you to be unclean, those things that would cause you to have inordinate affection, like people loving animals and men loving men more than they love women, and women loving women more than men. And they are looking at this and they're calling this normal behavior. But according to the scripture, it is inordinate affection, it is vile, it is wicked, and it is evil. Romans 1:26. For this cause God gave them up unto vile affections, for even their women did change the natural use into that which is against nature. This scripture also points to and tells us that God has given them over to those evil things, because it says that God has given them up to vile affections. Those are vile affections when a man thinks that he can take his penis and place it into the rectum of another man and call it love. It is not love, it is sodomy. We see now that CERN is working to open portals. They are trying to expedite the destruction of humanity because they are all Luciferians, and they have been promised by their god Satan that they would have power in this world and in the next. And these are things that are going on around the world. They are trying to open evil doors and portals to allow evil entities to cross over into our world even more, and also allow men to possibly cross over into their evil realm. These are the things that are going on, the things that were happening in Genesis chapter 6 that caused God to destroy men, because every evil imagination they had was all that they did continually. The world was filled with violence, and this is what is going on today. Every imagination of man is only evil now. They have an explanation for every earthquake or every critical weather anomaly. They always have some scientific explanation to that. But there are many things going on in the world, and people are not paying attention, especially in this country. They are following after movie stars, football players, and athletes, and they are concerned with the next movie that is coming out or the new technology. That's just like this movie, X-Men Apocalypse. These movies and things, all they do is desensitize people for all the horrible and terrible things that are going to come up on this planet. I do pray that those who are watching this message will do the research themselves in order to find out what is going on in the world. Do not trust CNN. Do not trust ABC. Do not trust any of these stations, NBC. Look and search the news for yourself, because there are many things that they won't tell you. That's just like a lot of the South American countries now. They are starving. There is no food in their countries. There is no food on their shelves. They can't even have power in their homes. And those things will happen with us soon. There are all kinds of diseases. There are wars going on. People are feasting at the same time that there are famines and people are starving. All of this is in the scripture. I would encourage you to turn to and to look in the scripture. I would strongly encourage you to be a Berean, to look and see whether everything that God has said is true. People are so closed-minded nowadays. They're like autonomic or automatically believe everything that the media tells them and sells them. People are following after daytime show stars. They are looking at soap operas. They are being wrapped up into commercials and producing and buying products that are being produced by these commercials, selling and upselling people, telling you that you'll be happy if you have this or that thing. Our world is so confused and so blinded that we cannot even see that there are Sodomites in the land. And when we can see and know for sure that there are Sodomites in the land, we see that wickedness and its cover of darkness has extended itself. This is great news for those who have placed their trust in Jesus. But those who do not know him, I fear for you, because times are only going to get more wicked, evil, and worse. I do pray that the Lord will add a blessing with this message.